Welcome to Stat Masters. I'm your host, Evan Ringler, and every week on this show, I bring you 20 stats in under 20 minutes to help you win your fantasy leagues. All of the player stats I mentioned in this video are pulled from PlayerProfiler.com. I personally use the data analysis tools to do the majority of my research for this show. Let's get it started with our first player, James Conner. Among 25 running backs with 100-plus carries this year, James Conner ranks first in juke rate, where he's actually 10% higher than any other player, second in yards created per rush, sixth in breakaway run rate, and eighth in EPX. From a volume perspective, Conner also ranks eighth in weighted opportunities and third in red zone touches. The Cardinals also have a great playoff schedule, facing the Patriots, Panthers, and Rams. James Conner could be a real running back one when it matters the most, as he has the volume, efficiency, and environment we look for. Next up, Javonte Williams. Among 25 running backs with 100-plus carries, Javonte ranks outside of the top 20 running backs in the following metrics: breakaway run rate, EPX, juke rate, true yards per carry, yards created per rush, yards per carry over expected, and points per game over expected. Among the high-volume running backs in the NFL, Javonte is one of, if not the worst, from an efficiency perspective. Yes, he is good in the passing game, but at this point in his career, Javonte is a clear negative running the football. Next up, Braelon Allen. Among 47 running backs with 50-plus carries, Braelon ranks 42nd in breakaway run rate, 45th in EPX, 35th in juke rate, 38th in true yards per carry, 39th in yards created per rush, and 42nd in yards per carry over expected. Several weeks ago, Braelon was actually beating Brees in several of these efficiency metrics. No longer, though, as Allen's efficiency has fallen off a cliff in recent weeks. He's still a strong handcuff due to the offense and potentially elite workload if Brees got hurt, but my optimism in Dynasty is waning. Number 4, Bucky Irving. Among 31 running backs with 80-plus carries, Bucky ranks third in breakaway run rate, 16th in EPX, second in juke rate, 7th in true yards per carry, 6th in yards created per rush, and 6th in yards per carry over expected. Rachaad White also performs significantly worse than Bucky in all of these efficiency metrics. Unfortunately, due to the workload split, neither running back is probably an every week starter at this point, but it is clear that Bucky Irving is the far more efficient running back on the ground. Next up, Jonathan Mingo. Among 83 wide receivers with 150-plus routes this year, Jonathan Mingo ranks 77th in yards per route run, 77th in target share, 80th in passer rating when targeted, 64th in EPX, 78th in air yard share, and 68th in true catch rate. Simply put, Jonathan Mingo has been one of the worst wide receivers in the NFL throughout his 2-year career. How dumb does Jerry Jones have to be in order to get fleeced by the Panthers? Next up, George Pickens. Currently the wide receiver 36 in points per game, despite being the wide receiver 7 in expected points per game. Pickens also ranks 8th in target share, 11th in target rate, 6th in air yard share, 8th in yards per route run, and 1st in EPX. All of these metrics paint George Pickens as a wide receiver 1. However, he's had just one touchdown on the season, despite ranking first in expected touchdowns. He's being targeted in the red zone at a very high rate, but he has not been able to convert on these attempts. Pickens is a clear regression candidate and should be viewed as a back-end wide receiver 1 going forward. His play style is a clear match with Russell Wilson. Now let's look at Darnell Mooney, who is currently the wide receiver 22 in points per game and the wide receiver 14 in expected points per game. He also ranks 7th in total air yards, 4th in EPX, and has a yards per route run above 2. If London misses any time, Darnell Mooney is a must-start. And let's be honest, Mooney is close to a must-start even with London active, as he's seen consistently good usage in a good offense. Now let's go to a quick word from the Podfather.
Oh, every week I'm answering these start-sit questions on Sunday morning. I go to the weekly rankings on PlayerProfiler.com just to make sure that my instincts are correct, and sometimes they're not. And guess what? More often than not, I go with the projections. You may not feel great about starting Daniel Jones or Wan'Dale Robinson, but the projections say, hey, that's the move. It may not feel right, but you use those projections to get it right. That's the power of the Player Profiler system. It's Evan Ringler, it's Bradley Stalder, it's Theo Greminger, of course, it's Billy Muzio making these rankings possible. The season rankings, so you know who to pick up, who to trade for. The dynasty rankings are part of this. The offensive line rankings from Dan Fornick, one of the best in the business. Then we get our cornerback rankings, which show which corners are matched up with which wide receivers. And now, in collaboration with the IDP show, we have IDP rankings. Did you know that? Did you? So go to playerprofiler.com, use promo code PODFATHER. Get you 25% off the player rankings package right now at playerprofiler.com. Enjoy!
All right, let's get right back to it with Jordan Addison. Addison is currently the wide receiver 81 in expected points per game. He also ranks 83rd in target rate, 69th in depth of target, 114th in total yards after the catch, and 60th in yards per route run. Addison is a fine wide receiver 2 for the Vikings, but not much more than that. In Dynasty, I recommend getting out of the Addison business immediately. And yes, I know that he will most likely score 2 touchdowns this week because I said this, but you should trust the metrics and do not waver. Next up, Courtland Sutton. Among qualified wide receivers, Sutton ranks 9th in targets, 2nd in total air yards, 3rd in red zone targets, 10th in EPX, and 8th in expected points per game. While the usage has been very good, Sutton is currently the wide receiver 37 in actual points per game. Why is that? Well, he also ranks 57th in target accuracy, 90th in catchable target rate, 89th in target quality, and 2nd in contested targets. Sutton is a good player that could excel in a different situation, but Bo Nix is clearly holding him back at this point in fantasy. Courtland does have one more year on his contract, and I really hope we can, at one point, see him on a different team. Next up, the Bears wide receivers. Currently, all 3 Bears wide receivers rank outside of the top 70 in terms of both catchable target rate and target accuracy. Caleb Williams' accuracy has been a real issue this year, which has been unexpected for me at least. Caleb currently ranks outside of the top 32 quarterbacks in all of our accuracy metrics. I don't think it's time to totally panic, but it is definitely something to keep an eye on. Now let's take a look at the 2024 wide receiver class. Among all 53 wide receivers with 200 plus routes this season, the top 3 in target rate versus man coverage are all rookies. We have Marvin Harrison Jr. at 50%, which is insane. Then we have Malik Neighbors at 38.9% and Ladd McConkey at 35.3%. This 2024 wide receiver class will be not just great, but historically elite. Last week I talked about Marvin Harrison Jr.'s metrics in depth, but this week let's admire Ladd McConkey. Among those same 53 wide receivers with 200 plus routes, only 3 players can say that they've outperformed Ladd McConkey in each of these following categories: air yard share, target share, yards per route run, and yards after the catch per reception. The only players to beat McConkey in all 4 categories are Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, and Zay Flowers. Ladd is already one of the most well-rounded wide receivers in the NFL. I don't have a single concern about Ladd being a wide receiver 1 in this league. Next up, Jaylen Waddle. I haven't been able to find a single bright spot in Waddle's 2024 metrics. There is no stat that can paint him in a favorable light. In terms of sticky wide receiver metrics like yards per route run, target share, target rate, or air yard share, 2024 is his worst season by a huge margin in all of those stats. This is even more bizarre considering that he just signed a massive extension this offseason. You would think that they would want to get him the ball more. I really have no explanation for this huge drop-off in his play. Yes, Devon Achane has taken over a huge step in the receiving game, but why is Jonnu Smith out targeting Waddle? Actually, over the last 4 weeks, Jonnu is the Dolphins' leading target earner over Tyreek, Waddle, and Achane. My conspiracy theory that's completely unfounded is that Jaylen Waddle might be playing through an undisclosed injury, similar to Kyle Pitts was last season. Next up is Bijan Robinson versus Tyler Allgeier. In odd week numbers this season, Bijan averages a 69% rush share, while Allgeier is at 23%. In even weeks, though, Bijan has a 46% rush share, and Allgeier rises up to 44%. This is really weird, but essentially, the Falcons have alternated every week between a 50-50 split and a 70-30 split in terms of running back carries. In odd-numbered weeks, Bijan essentially sees elite running back 1 usage, while in even weeks, his usage is that of a running back 2. I can't tell you right now if this is a genuine strategy by the coaching staff or just pure coincidence, but it is certainly worth paying attention to. Next up, Tank Bigsby. Over the first 6 weeks of the season, Bigsby had a 14% route participation and just 1 target over those 6 games. In the last 3 games, which includes week 9 when ETN was actually healthy, Bigsby has a 44% route participation and 3 targets in 3 games. Not only has Tank taken over the 1A position from ETN in the running game, but he's also eating into the receiving work as well. I don't expect either running back to be particularly useful in fantasy this year or in 2025, honestly, as the Jaguars did exercise ETN's 5th-year option. And our last stat this week is Chase Brown. In 2 weeks without Zach Moss, Chase Brown has commanded an 88% rush share, 72% route participation, and 17% target share. Chase Brown is an explosive back with a workhorse role in an elite offense. The question should not be, is Chase Brown an RB1? The real question is Chase Brown the RB1?